Tiffany, tell us exactly what is happening in Oxnard, because I know this isn't the first time you and I have discussed this kind of ploy by local municipalities to outlaw basically the access for people to go get their firearms repaired, buy parts, accessories, or even purchase their first firearm.
Sure. So the Oxnard City Council has called for a public hearing where they're going to discuss banning additional firearm retailers in the city. And what this does is there's already several retailers in the city, but it prevents additional stores from opening up, which would give people options for having repairs done or getting safety classes or purchasing a firearm or ammunition. And it's their attempt to make it more difficult and harder for people to go in and exercise their Second Amendment rights.
You know, here at the CRPA, we deal with a lot of the different FFLs, and I know that there's several that we have lost in the past year just because of the, I will call it almost violent extremism that is used against businesses that are dealt with by their local municipalities in the state. And so let's take Oxnard, for example, and say, you know, store ABC, they just decide to call it quits and move out of the state. Can they sell that store to somebody new and they continue it under this plan? Or is that something that, no, this would be a new permit and therefore would not be allowed under this?
Well, we don't have the actual ordinance yet, but in the past in other cities, what's happened is if a business goes out and they don't transfer it or it's not just taken over by a family member, there's no way for a new business to come in and take over that space and start selling firearms and ammunition. So what they're hoping is that these stores that are existing will kind of phase out and they won't have the ability to come back in. Now, this is a 1-year moratorium that they're talking about. It would start with 45 days and then it would extend past that. And we've seen this in other cities, like San Carlos did this. And this is something that we have to fight against. We need people to show up and talk to your city council members and tell them, you know, that this is not a good policy to go after lawful businesses in their city.
One of the things I've been trying to encourage members and the public that supports the Second Amendment to realize is it's about the story in these meetings. It's not just about showing up and saying I believe in the Second Amendment. I think that's fairly well assumed by these different local municipalities, but it's about telling the story of why that store or business has made a difference in your life.
Exactly. Yeah, this is not a facts-driven society that we're in, or they don't want to listen to facts necessarily. They want to hear the stories. And the anti-gun activists are very good at telling their side of the stories. They are very emotional and they pull at the heartstrings. And so your members, it's very important that they are able to tell those same stories as to why it's important for them to have access to firearms and ammunition in their own cities.
Does this make them safer not having this, or does it make them less safe by not having this?
Absolutely not. It doesn't make them safer. Anytime that you limit someone's right to protect themselves, it affects the safety overall of the area. And in Oxnard, actually, they have a crime rate that's about 20% higher than the national average. So they already have a problem with crime in the area, and they're trying to limit a person's access to firearms and ammunition so that they can be able to protect themselves and their families. It's really a dangerous situation.
Now you brought that up, we work with law enforcement a lot of time, and there seems to be this attitude to the left that you don't need firearms to protect yourself because there's plenty of law enforcement to take care of you. Yet I think one of the things our people need to realize is if you give a population of a city and you look at how small these police departments are, there is no way the handful of police officers there can protect everybody at once.
Right. Well, I mean, police officers obviously have a very tough job to take care of an entire city, especially when there's crime and there's gangs and there's all these, you know, drug cartels and that sort of thing going on. But they can't get there. If somebody has a home invasion, the police can't get there within the several minutes that it takes for someone to break into your home and terrorize your family. Police don't have a duty to protect everyone. That's been said by the courts, that police do not have a duty to protect you. So where does that leave you? If the city takes away your right to be able to protect yourself and your family and others, that leaves you vulnerable to all of these criminal elements that are out there. And in Oxnard, there are criminal elements that they have to be concerned about.
At these meetings, Tiffany, we tend to see a lot of people showing up opposing people's Second Amendment rights and their rights to protect themselves and their rights to actually have a safer environment. And one of the things that I've noticed, and I want to hear what your comments are, is they aren't necessarily people from that local city.
That's right. That's right. What we're seeing is a concerted effort across the state, and it's you have these local groups that set up, and they're being funded and they're being supported by a national movement. And that's what's happening in Oxnard. That's what's happening in Ventura. It happened in Del Mar, all over the state. And they're getting petitions signed by people from all over the country. And then they're taking these petitions into these city councils and these county supervisors. And they're saying, look at all the people that support what you're doing to protect our city and to take away the right for people to purchase firearms and ammunition. When in fact, these are not local people. These are people from across the country. They're activists. They have a political agenda. And it's not supporting what the people in the actual community want. If you look at a lot of these different meetings, the meetings are full of Second Amendment supporters, not the anti-gun activists. But these cities are so swayed by these, national polls and national signature campaigns that they really listen to that. So that's why it's important for your members to show up at these meetings and to write in if they can't show up. If they're from another part of the state, they still can write and tell these city councils what they need to do as far as protecting people's Second Amendment rights.
I think it's really important that our members understand this is not just limited to Oxnard. As Tiffany said earlier in this interview, it also has to do with places like San Carlos. This is happening northern, central, southern California, everywhere. This is going to come to your city, your locale. It is time that you band together with your brothers and sisters and be at each of these meetings. And as she said, if you can't be there, then write a letter. Tell them how you feel, because believe me, it's not just people from within the state. We have people being bussed in from across the country to fight this fight in California that will go. So you're not going to be able to flee this problem by just simply moving away. We're seeing that throughout the country right now. The left is out to take your firearms away, to remove your rights. They want to abolish the Second Amendment. This is part of a concentrated effort, and you need to be as concerted in fighting back as they are in taking your rights. Thank you, Tiffany.
Thank you.